So, there has been a lot of talk about the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone, also known by the very cool sounding acronym CHAZ. This has aroused the imagination and attention of the left worldwide. Directly inspired by the Minneapolis Uprising, which also produced autonomous zones in the city of Minneapolis, and the existence of a basically an area where the police had abandoned. This shows again how the new African people's liberation struggle continues to produce the most advanced theory and praxis in the country. There have been people's gardens popping up. These are the work of new African farmers who have been reclaiming space for the purpose of food autonomy and self sufficiency. There have been mutual aid networks set up, and there has been provision of healthcare, food, and other necessary support for the houseless. The CHAZ did not spring out of the head of some revisionist party hack, nor from the pages of some anarchist Bible, but from the organic struggle of the masses. This is objectively a good thing. But, being Maoists, we must not fail to criticize erroneous trends and politics that are often glossed over by many, even our own tendency, out of a rightful disdain for the overly theoretical ways of doing things and analyzing things that are devoid of actual practice in the class struggle and the revolutionary movement. The CHAZ is good, but is it a truly autonomous zone? No. You can't just put a label on something and expect it to automatically take on the characteristics of that thing. This is not a revolutionary base area, okay? Revolutionary base areas are conquered by force. They aren't just set up. I've seen videos, a lot of videos from people that have been there, and they're describing it as a carnival atmosphere, like a street festival or something like that. This is not a base area. This is not an autonomous zone. If you just stick up some trash barricades and parade barricades around a few blocks, and you don't really try to defend your area, or you do not actually take measures to prevent Nazis, and this is one guy called Raz, I believe, who is a landlord and also a SoundCloud rapper, who is who's basically been running amok in this area, and it took a while for people to try to kick him out. This is what happens when you adhere to the horizontal model. If the police, reactionaries, and fascists can enter your autonomous zone and leave alive, it's not truly autonomous, or at least the most advanced elements are not in control. Speaking of control, who exactly is leadership? Who is behind this thing? Where's the accountability? Anarchists praise the horizontal model for its supposed inherent justice and the prevention of a rise of an abusive hierarchy. But as communists, we have seen the failure and the collapse of projects organized among this model time after time after time again throughout history. Politics is politics, and we know that although there is not a formal, open, recognized leadership, in practice on the ground this may be a good thing. State repressive forces always look for leaders to make an example of and stick Fed cases on. There are those in anarchist circles we all know who carry clout, whether it be due to successfully beating a highly publicized case, knowing the right people, having access to ready funds, or knowing those who have access to lots of money, relationship ties with important people in the movement, or personal charisma. This is a liberal, bourgeois, individualist method of organizing, and it is also a precarious one. If a project can be wrecked by an important sponsor withdrawing their support, or a romantic breakup and the subsequent gossip and backstabbing that comes along with this, it's really not all that politically viable. So what we always see in horizontal movements is an informal hierarchy in practice. Secondly, let's look at the location of this Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone. Maoists believe that we have to construct, conquer, and expand our base areas in peripheral locations, where the government has withdrawn or where it's never present in the first place. In the United States, this means Rust Belt cities and suburbs populated by working class and semi-proletarian, nationally oppressed people. This also means indigenous reservations and other areas where we can construct a mass base through mass work. Now keep in mind, the party doesn't just show up overnight and stake a claim like a hungry colonizer or conquistador, but it develops this through mass work and standing shoulder to shoulder with the people providing ideological and political leadership. Leadership is not claimed, it is developed, and only the people can recognize their vanguard as such. The CHAZ, on the other hand, is in central Seattle and easily accessible to repressive forces. Here's the thing: if you try to set up an autonomous zone downtown where all the money people are and all that, no. It's really not going to work all that well. People care about those areas. By people, I mean the bourgeoisie. They care about these areas. They're going to want to reclaim these areas. They're going to do whatever they need to do to reclaim these areas. So it would be a foolish Maoist party that would set up an autonomous zone in a downtown area in a place that is extremely important to transnational shipping and capitalism like Seattle or LA. However, if you organize on the periphery, areas that the bourgeoisie, the old state, really doesn't care all that much about, then you'll have a lot more freedom of movement, and the masses will certainly be a lot more receptive because you've already been working with them. So the fact that there is no real hardcore force to defend the zone is also worrisome as well. If the police come to break it up, they'll roll over. They will succeed. However, I would like to suggest to listeners and readers of my work that if you're in or near Seattle, offer your support in that inevitable moment. I should not have to clarify further what support means. Learn warfare through warfare. So what can we learn from this? For one, we have to continue to study and think about what a real autonomous zone or urban base area would look like in our respective areas. I imagine most of you live in cities. Do some research. I have written extensively on this topic. Conduct social investigation and class analysis, and root yourself not in spontaneity, but in solid facts, and proceed on this basis. The CHAZ is good because it is inspiring people to think about how little we really need these parasitic imperialist forces breeding our produce and our lives to feed a tiny few. However, when it falls apart, and it's going to fall apart, we should not get into bitterness, nihilism, or despair. These are anarchist diseases. So, about the leadership of the CHAZ, it seems to be that rightist elements are in control. So this is naturally going to lead to recuperation. That is, by recuperation, I mean definitely the bourgeoisie is going to reclaim so-called their territory, and the so-called leaders of this movement are going to capitulate. They're going to get into nonprofit stuff. They're going to accept some token concessions and reforms. This has been happening in protests all across the country. We've seen this happening in St. Louis. We've seen this happening in Chicago. We've seen this happening in Boston, Philly, everywhere that there are revisionist and reformist parties that are allowed to take control of things. There are problems, and the movement is losing steam. So what Maoists must do is build this steam back up, go among the masses and organize people's forums. By people's forums, I mean places where the masses can speak their bitterness and where we develop new methods of organizing in communist leadership and where we build new communists. We have to allow the people to speak. We have to offer them space to speak, and we have to root ourselves among them, unlike the revisionists and the reformers who just see them as warm bodies for protests. By rooting ourselves among them, we actually will have the basis to establish Maoist autonomous zones and develop them and make them long-lasting. This is the objective basis for the development of People's War. I'm Black Red Guard.